What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. This is the channel where we sit down and cover different comic book stories from Marvel, DC, and even IDW as well. But today, we are going to jump back over to Marvel Comics and continue our coverage over the latest Daredevil run and cover Volume 3. Now, Volume 3 perfectly sets up the big bang we are going to see in the next video. But in this video right here, we have Cole North, Matt Murdock, and the Kingpin all realizing something different they have to do to help save Hell's Kitchen. I do hope you enjoy today's video, and if you do, please hit that like button down below and also subscribe to the channel for more content to come in the near future. Also, any suggestions on books I should read, well, please let me know in the comments below. But I do hope you enjoy today's video. We begin today's video with us seeing a lady being attacked by her own boyfriend, letting us know that she is in a domestic relationship with this man, where he tells her that he plans to kill her over some drugs. That is when we see Daredevil appear to save the day by beating down on the thug. Except this is not our Daredevil. This is not Matt Murdock. This is someone else wearing the mask. Remember that we learned in our last video that with Daredevil gone, people had decided to step up and become Daredevils themselves to help protect their city. Now, when this Daredevil tries to leave, he is greeted by some of Hell's Kitchen's cops, letting us know that he is not going anywhere anytime soon. Now we jump into where our last video left off at, which is that we saw Elektra appear in front of Matt Murdock after he saved Cole North from the dirty cops. Now this is Elektra coming to Matt Murdock, telling him that he lost his way, that he has grown soft to her and forgotten everything Stick taught them. For you guys out there who are new to the Daredevil landscape, Stick was the guy who trained both Daredevil and Elektra, really taught Daredevil how to use his enhanced senses. This is Elektra telling Matt that she is going to help him get back on the right path, his new Stick basically. Then we get reminded about the Libris family. And remember that we met Mindy, who became the new love interest to Matt, except she is married to Tom Libris, who is part of the Libris crime family, the son of Izzy Libris, and she runs the crime family. But we see her right now talking to Tom because in the last video, the Owl, another character who is a leader of another gang in the city, attacked her area. They burned down Mindy's bookstore, and Tom wants revenge for the loss of his wife's business. Now Mindy really just wants to take Tom and their daughter and leave the crime family, but Tom is very persistent in staying with his mother to help handle the Owl. Now we pick up with Cole North, and remember, he was the cop who had transferred from Chicago to New York. He has a major problem with vigilantes like Daredevil and Spider-Man. Last video we saw him get beat up by some dirty cops because thanks to him they were having a hard time getting the money they wanted from the Owl and other villains. But right now we see him doing his job, which is to capture vigilantes because it is illegal in New York thanks to the Kingpin. We see them try to capture Spider-Man, but of course Cole North and his team fail because it is Spider-Man. And you have Spider-Man take Cole North away to have a conversation real quick. Now picking up with Daredevil again, we see him just going around the neighborhood where we see him checking up on Joey. Remember that Joey is the latest person that was assigned to Matt because Matt is a parole officer now. Also, Joey is the brother of the guy Daredevil killed in the beginning of this run. But Matt is just making sure the new job Matt got for Joey is working out. except this leads into him meeting Joey's mother, the mother of the guy Matt killed as well. And for Matt, it is hard for him to live with the fact that he killed a man in an accident. And so you have Matt offer to help the family out with anything they need. Now, Matt thinks that Joey knows that he is Daredevil because of the incident in our last video where the bad cops decided to clean house. Finally, we see what the Kingpin has been up to because in our last video, we saw him quit being the Kingpin of crime in New York City, so he can focus on basically becoming the Kingpin of crime of the entire state. The reason why we pick up with him is because the Owl has broken the one rule of the Kingpin had placed after walking away from being the king of crime in the city. That with him being mayor, if the gang leaders can keep their crime manageable, he will turn a blind eye. Except the Owl is the one gang leader who has not been following the rule. And so Kingpin's plan was to send him away until he learns how to follow the rule. Except you have the Owl use his powers to escape and he leaves, but states his goal is to become the new Kingpin of crime of the city. Finally, getting into the conversation with Spider-Man and Cold North, where we see Spider-Man trying to point out that Cold North need to realize that superheroes also make mistakes, except heroes try to learn from their mistakes to be better, so whatever they did does not happen again. To Cold North, heroes should not get away with murder, referring to Daredevil killing the guy in our previous video. And you have Spider-Man point out that the heroes and the good cops are trying to do the same thing, trying to save lives. And when are you going to realize that all you're doing is hurting your own allies? Then we see Matt and Foggy Nelson in line trying to get inside a restaurant for brunch, except that is when you have Mindy calling Matt, where this continues the issue that Mindy loves both men, except it is complicated for her to choose who to be with. But this leads into Daredevil hearing someone getting beat up on, which he hears the fake Daredevil from the beginning of our video being tortured. And so Daredevil knows he has to go help this man out. Now, this Daredevil is known as Hector, and he's just trying to protect Hell's Kitchen the best he can. But we are seeing that these cops are dirty cops as well because they are planning what to do with this Daredevil. Except that is when you have Foggy Nelson appear, and this begins Foggy acting like he is Hector's attorney, hoping that the police will let Hector go. But just in case they don't, you have Foggy tell these dirty cops that he had called some other cops. If some good cops comes, this will put these dirty cops' jobs in danger. And so you have them agree at first, except they realize that something is up. And so this plan is not going to work. Luckily, you have Matt Murdock there as a backup plan, which is needed now. Of course, we get a couple pages of Matt Murdock fighting these guys, and honestly, this is continuing the idea of Matt still struggling being a fighter. He is out of shape in the superhero way, but at the same time, he has forgotten his way of fighting, and so Matt Murdock is going to be struggling with these guys. Now we pick up with the Kingpin, and this is very important because the Kingpin is meeting up with some of the wealthiest people in America. Kingpin plan is to get buddy with them so that they can help him get his marijuana deal done. Remember, Kingpin is trying to find a way to finesse some money out of it, become the big Kingpin of the state of New York. And this is the Strawmans and a couple other people. I do hope I pronounced that name correctly, but the main ones that he's going to sit down and have this meeting with are going to be the Strawmans. This is a very important meeting, but you have Kingpin thinking that this was going to be easy for him because he is the Kingpin. He usually gets whatever he wants, and also because he is the mayor of New York City. Except you have one of the investors, Tyrone, actually kind of picks on the Kingpin for being a well-known Kingpin of crime. Also because he's not a big time investor like they are, basically just being your usual bully. But with that, and some of the strawmans kind of agreeing with Tyrone with the bullying, you have Kingpin leave the room to go to the bathroom just to get away from them for a brief moment. But getting back over to the fight with Matt Murdock and a few members of Dirty Cops, we see that him and Hector are working together now. Except this fight is not easy for them, and it gets to the point where they might actually lose the fight. Of course, you have Matt get lucky here again, because when it does seem like that Matt Murdock and Hector might lose this battle, of course, the one person who is trying to help Matt out lately is Elektra herself, and she appears again to help out Matt with these dirty cops. Now, picking up with one of the craziest part of the book is that we pick up with the Kingpin in the bathroom trying to calm down, because if you saw in our last video, Kingpin has been having issues controlling his anger. So what happens when the person who just bullied you comes into the same bathroom you are in? You are trying to calm down, but that person does not stop talking mad smack. Well, for the Kingpin, you kill them. And so the Kingpin kills off Tyrone just like that. Now, getting into the moments after Kingpin had killed Tyrone off, the question is, how will Kingpin be able to get away with this? Because he came to this dinner to hopefully build a bond with these investors to help him with his big plan. Except now his big plan could fall apart. And so he called his assistant, and his assistant now has to make a plan to help the Kingpin out before the strawmans and the other investors find the body. Honestly, Kingpin gets a tad bit lucky here, but only for this moment. And so you have the assistant of the Kingpin begin to look at the information that was gathered on the staff that works for the strawmans, because you have the Kingpin assistant go and talk to one of the janitors, where we can tell this janitor basically is going to be forced to help clean up the bathroom, but make it look like Tyrone killed himself instead of the Kingpin. After getting the janitor involved, this leads into the final part of the plan, which is calling the police to this location to make this plan really come together. Switching over to Matt Murdock and Elektra, remember what she said earlier, that her goal is to be the new stick for Daredevil, that her goal is to help him, to make him better, because to her, he has lost his way. Now, Elektra really has a different plan in mind, but we don't learn this plan until later on in the series. But we see that she's able to train Matt to get him back to the point where he needs to be at. Now, something I do want to mention is that with Daredevil last series, right after Secret Wars, the whole world forgot that he was Matt Murdock, except Foggy Nelson. And so Elektra right now sees Matt Murdock and Daredevil as two ex-boyfriends, two different people. But that is what Matt thinks, to be honest. But getting back to the janitor that is helping the Kingpin clean up his latest crime, this proceeds into the final plan of the Kingpin's assistant big plan, where after the janitor being able to clean up the bathroom just enough to leave a small amount of blood, the reason why is because the plan has changed from making it seem that Tyrone killed himself. Instead, the plan is now to frame the janitor to make it seem that he was the one who killed Tyrone. This gives us a page where you have Matt Murdock deciding that he needs to change the way he helps people, that what he was doing as Daredevil did not work, and so he wants to do more, starting with fixing the police, because the police were told not to police Hell's Kitchen. The question is, who gave that order? Now we pick up with Izzy Libris, who is meeting with the Owl. This is a very important meeting because remember, in our last video, he tried to make moves in Hell's Kitchen as soon as the Kingpin gave up being the Kingpin of crime. Hell's Kitchen is Lizzie's area, but called a clean house, meaning that she wanted her people to kill anyone that was secretly working for the Owl in Hell's Kitchen. Well, right now she is trying to reach some kind of deal with the Owl to stop the bloodshed between the two gangs, and you have the Owl kill the people that she came with to basically declare that he is going to be the next kingpin of crime. Now, the closing part of this chapter, we see the Kingpin pretending that he is sad to see what happened to Tyrone, making it seem like that he found the dead body and it put him in a shock. Of course, the other investors, including the strawmans, know that the Kingpin is lying his butt off. We also see Cole North is being forced to take some time off. His boss is making him take some time off, or a leave of absence. This is more what Daredevil said earlier, that someone out there is telling the cops not to parole the city. The ones that are dirty cops, and so the good cops are being forced out in a way. It really does bother Cole North a lot to see that a city that he came to help out is trying his best to kick his help away. Except once he helps out a homeless person from being beat up on by a few street thugs, that is when he is greeted by Matt Murdock. Now this leads to Cole North and Matt Murdock having a conversation. This is huge because remember that these two did not see eye to eye in the beginning of this run. But in our last video, they had to work together to get out of the police department. Also, Cole North came from Chicago to help arrest vigilantes because to him, they are breaking the law. But this is where we learn the real reason why he came to New York. It is the fact that he shot a kid in an accident. But of course, as a cop, he was able to get off any charges. This leads to Daredevil telling him that the law is not the same anymore, pointing out that when you're a cop, rules bend a tad bit for you. But if you're not a cop, you are screwed every way possible. This is where you have Cole North starting to understand that even though Daredevil is breaking the law, being a vigilante, he is still helping people. People were happy having Daredevil in the city. And so this is where you have them agree in a way to work together, but to find out why the cops have stopped patrolling the city. Cole North said the police commissioner told the police to stop. Also, Matt informs Cole North that a gang war is going to happen between Hammerhead, the Owl, and the Libris family soon. And so their goal is to stop that gang war. But getting back over to the Kingpin, the day after he framed somebody for the murder he did, we see him at his penthouse home. And he's trying to stay away from the public for the moment. Except he gets a call from the Strawmans, the twins of the investors that he was trying to work with for his big plan. They tell him that they know that the Kingpin was the one who killed Tyrone, and he was trying to make it seem like he wasn't. This is also the moment you have the Strawmans tell the Kingpin that he may be the mayor, but they are more powerful than him. That they caused a protest as a small thing to ruin his plans on buying marijuana farms for him to grow his marijuana. But getting back over to Matt, we see him meeting up with Mindy. Now this is Matt trying to tell Mindy that she needs to leave the city, that he knows a gang war is going to pop off soon, and the police are not going to do anything about it, which means a lot of people are going to get hurt in this big gang war. And so he wants to get her somewhere safe. But to Mindy, this is Matt trying to get rid of her and only wanting her around when he feels he needs her, and so she leaves angry at him. Now we get into this section where we see Izzy meeting up with Hammerhead. And this is very important because this is Izzy making a deal with Hammerhead as a way to take down the Owl. Because now with these two gangs coming together, this could make things hard for the Owl. Now tell you the truth, this is going to be a mistake for Izzy, but she is doing this to save her family and to keep her territory. But picking up with Cold North, we see him out being a cop with his new partner, Detective Green, since Fred Higgins, his last partner, was killed in our last video. But it is them patrolling. This is a huge moment for Cold North because he realized that he is going to ignore orders that he was told to follow. Don't actually police the city, just be out there and that is it. Except Cold North decides not to follow that, and he goes out and stops some thugs and tells his partner to be a cop. Stop pretending to be one. Picking up with Daredevil, we see him listening in on the commissioner's phone call that is about Cold North not following the rule, where you have Elektra stop by, and this leads into a conversation that the commissioner was told by the governor that the police in Hell's Kitchen should not be policing the city at all. Elektra points out that Daredevil has changed because old him would have rushed in and tortured the man in a hero way for information. Instead, he is being smart on how to gather information for his next move and tells Elektra that he is going to go after the governor now. Before he goes over to see the governor, the next day we see him meeting up with Foggy Nelson. This is a big moment for the friendship of Foggy Nelson and Matt Murdock. The reason why is because this is the point that Matt tells Foggy that he is going to be a hero again, not the old school Daredevil, that this is him kind of taking the mantle of Daredevil in a different direction, where of course you have Foggy Nelson disagreeing with the idea, but it's Matt Murdock saying that they don't have a choice here because the city is about to see a gang war. But we then see Wilson Fisk meeting up with the Strawmans, and this is more in them confirming the fact that they own Wilson Fisk, that even though he thought he was the mayor and he was untouchable, they are showing him that he is touchable, that they can make him be their servant. Whatever they want him to do, he will have to do it. And so you have the Strawman's twins call in these bodyguards that have this tech to beat down on the Kingpin. And this is supposed to see if the Kingpin can fight against these guys. Except before we are able to see the fight between the Kingpin and those guards, we actually pick up with Daredevil and Elektra visiting the governor, where they break in and avoid most of the guards, except this is the same governor we saw in a previous video who was hanging out around the Kingpin. And he was the one who told the police commissioner, who then told all the police officers in the city not to police Hell's Kitchen. He proceeds to tell Matt and Elektra that he was told to do this by the Strawmans. He tells them they own everything in Hell's Kitchen. Picking up with the Kingpin fighting against those guards who have the tech to help them fight against the Kingpin, we see him getting his butt kicked by these guys, but this is more of him trying his best to show that he will not be defeated that easily, except these guys don't care and throw him out the window. But these are the Strawmans again stating that the Kingpin is basically under their control now. Picking up with Daredevil and Elektra, they had to escape the governor's house because the security force was about to capture them. Now we are going to end the video with the two of them getting away, but of course we see them pull the car they escape in to the side of the road to hide, except the book closes with them planning to get their freak on. And that is the end of this story right here. Now this is part of the video where I sit down and give my thoughts on about the book. To be honest, I like this book a lot. It's perfectly setting up Daredevil for a big event in the next video, and you'll see what I mean when we get to the next video. But this story right here, it finally brought Cold North to realize that what Daredevil and Spider-Man and the rest of the superhero community is doing, trying to save lives, trying to protect the earth from bad people. And it's Cold North realizing that, hey, they're here to help. Now at first, Cold North looked at them as bad people or people who were bending the rules. But I like how Matt Murdock came to him and said, you do realize when you're a cop, the rules are bent for you as well. And so it had Cole North realize that this whole time he was looking at the world in the wrong direction. Now for Kingpin, I like how it made Kingpin become somebody's servant. Basically, it's him realizing that he's not on top, that he cannot always get whatever he wants. He has to work for it. He has to fight for it. And I like what they did with this story, showing us Kingpin has to work for something for once, that he is not on top of the world. This is a solid story. But anyways, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and end today's video right here. So please leave me a like down below and also subscribe to the channel for more content to come in the near future. Also, any suggestions on books I should read, well, please let me know in the comments below, because you never know, your suggestion could be a future video down the road. Later, guys.